Hi there, welcome back. Now today I'm going to be showing you some of my inspiration for doing what I'm going to be doing this year, and I'm pretty much inspiring myself by previous work I've done. I want to get back to a stage where I was previously. So let's take a look at some of the stuff I've got on the table here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is this book right here, and this is the Complete Woodworkers Manual by Albert Jackson, David Day, and designed by Simon Jennings. I will put a link in the description to this book, but this is the book that sort of inspired me right from day one. Now this book goes from everything. It goes from how the trees grow right through to the different types of woods, and then there's all different models on how to make, for example here I'm looking at a chair, and it's just really inspiring to look at. It goes through all the different tools. It's just a really interesting book. Now I've read this book loads of times. I've not read it recently, but when I was at a younger age and getting into woodwork, this was like my go-to manual. If I had a question and I needed an answer quick, I would go to this and I would try and find the best answer I could. Another interesting thing in this book, this book actually inspired me to buy a lathe. I'll get into some pictures and whatnot on that in a minute, but there's a section on wood turning in here as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's the first thing. The first thing that inspired me was this book here. It taught me the basics of woodworking. It's a really good book, and if you haven't read it, I would advise buying it and reading it. Now once I'd read that book, I'd started to make some of my own furniture and whatnot in what was a very basic workshop. Where we used to live, we had like an old barn in the garden, and I would basically take firewood, which was scrap woods, and make furniture from it, because I didn't have any money or a budget to make furniture. So I would get all this scrap wood and look at it and try and be inspired on what to build and whatnot. And that is where this book comes in. This is what I've got written on it, my portfolio. And this is the actual book that got me my job in Germany, and it's also the book that got me my apprenticeship in France. So I did this book before I did my apprenticeship. So this book is maybe 15 years old, and it's not full, but it's got quite a fair bit of what I did in it. So on the first page, the very first project I did was this thing here, and this is a little cabinet to cover up a electrical box. There was an electrics box on the wall, and we just wanted a little cabinet in the house to cover it up. So I took a load of this scrap wood. It was milled down to a thickness, to a certain thickness, but it was classed as firewood. And then there's other things in here, like a chest that I built. I built a bookshelf, which we still have. I don't have it here, but my parents have it. Maybe I'll get some footage of that at some point, but that's one of the things I built. Some more chests. That's a table that I built with like a live edge. This is like a toolbox that I was making. This is a chest which I still have upstairs. The interesting thing about this chest is the legs were at an angle like that, and it was fairly difficult for me to do that with the tools and equipment that I had at that point in time. Now one of my hobbies is aquariums, so I'm a fish keeper. I keep saltwater fish, and while I was in France I made a little stand for an aquarium. The interesting thing about this was this was the first thing I ever did with like veneer inlay in it. You can't really see it on the picture, but I did like a little diamond cross on the doors on that. That's another chest I made out of pine, and then we get into, this is sort of the era where I got a lathe. So I start making bowls and stuff like that. Here are some pictures of my bowls that I did. I did a bowl here which was like a leaf bowl. So it's got two arms that are longer than the other ones. There's so many things that I made and just didn't document while I was doing them, and it's a real shame. And that is sort of what's inspiring me as well, because there's so many things that I can remember but I don't have pictures of and I can't show anyone. So I'm going to make them again basically. This is a key holder that I made. I still have this. This was part of my apprenticeship as well, and that's upstairs right now, although it's been painted now so you can't really see the wood, but we needed to paint it to make it more into the style of our hallway. Now this is sort of the next thing that I'm going to get into. I'll try and find some more images of this and put them on the screen as I'm talking as well. But this was a competition that I did while I was in France during my apprenticeship. And if you was to translate it, because it was all in French obviously, if you was to translate it, it was one of the best apprentices in France. So that's you basically competing to get the title of the best apprentice in France. And what I had to build was, like, if you imagine a wall, part of a wall, and it was the start of a staircase, so the first 2 steps in a certain style and whatnot. And I did as much of it by hand as I could. I ended up getting a gold medal in our region, and my piece went on to the country final. So it was being judged on the scale of the whole country. But I never heard anything back from them. I never heard anything. So I assume it either got lost or it got damaged. I just never heard anything back from them after that. But yeah, that is what this is here. That is the certificate that I got for taking part in this competition, and I had to go and get this. There is a medal as well that goes to it, but the medal is sort of, it's a bit cheesy. So hopefully I'm going to hang this on a wall up here somewhere, and every time I look at it I can remember what I did and what I did in my apprenticeship to get this, and what I learned, and be inspired by this as well. And that's it for that book there. This book here is some of the drawings that I did in France. So we didn't have AutoCAD when I did my apprenticeship. We did have it, but we didn't use it. We opted to go through the route of learning it by drawing. So this is some of the drawings that I did. I'll just take one out at random and we can have a look at it. So if I hold that up to the camera, try and get it in the light a little bit, like that. But that is the kind of stuff that I drew everything. That's how we learned AutoCAD in France. And every time I look at these, because I remember when I drew these, I remember thinking to myself, I'm not capable of building that at this stage. But now I look at it and it's like, that's easy. So maybe at some stage I'll go through some of these and figure out if I could maybe make some. I don't know. But yeah, that's this book here. That's my my drawings that I did, and that's also every time I look at it, it inspires me as well. Unfortunately, I don't actually have a lot of actual woodworking pieces that I've made to show you, because when I was making it, I was either making it for someone else, I was making it for our house, in which case it belongs to my parents, or it's just got lost along the way or something like that. So I don't have much actual material items that I can show you. So I'm going through some of these and I'll show you some pictures and whatnot. But that's what inspires me, and that is what's going to drive me to do this channel and make it into something where I can build things like this once again. Okay, so thank you for watching. Next week I'm going to be talking about my plans for the future and my goal for this year. So I've set myself a goal for the end of the year, something that I want to make and where I want this sort of area to be and whatnot. And by the end of the year I want to be there, and we're going to talk about that next week. As a little teaser, I've got this envelope here, and inside here is some plans. I don't want to reveal too much, but I've had these plans for maybe 15 years. So I had these when I was sort of doing my woodworking things in the barn, and I just didn't have the means to build this then because it's very small and intricate. But I do now, especially with that thing behind me over there, I'm going to be able to make this. It needs to be very precise, but what is it? I'll give you a little clue as to what it is. So it's made by a company that made tools, and they sold a bandsaw, and these plans they gave to their customers with the bandsaws. The company that sold these bandsaws is now bust. They don't exist anymore. It's an English company, and they are from Sheffield in England. So maybe you can find out with that what kind of project it would be. But if you know what it is, leave a comment down below in the comment sections. But if you want to know what it is, obviously subscribe and whatnot. And I'm going to show you next week. I'm going to show you these plans and yeah, talk about my sort of goal for next year. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.